Hey, this is Ramon. The channel is Alpha 4. Please like, please subscribe, please comment down below. Please feel free to make a video response and put the link in the comments underneath this video. Let's get to it. And I thought I was done with Rachel Steffens. Then she makes this video on Christopher Columbus, defending Christopher Columbus, which I don't actually mind that. But she defends him in the stupidest way possible. So I have another deconstruction video on her, and it's kind of funny because she actually hits on some of the things that I corrected in my deconstruction of Brian Holdsworth videos, and I have 2 of those out. Please watch them. The second one, by the way, part 2 is much better than part 1. Part 1 is just all facts about the Inquisition. Part 2 is just commentary on his video, which is what this is going to be, commentary on demonic people detest him. Christopher Columbus Day. Truth in all capital letters. Okay. So before you guys do like Brian and try to say that I'm just talking out of my ass, here's the deal. I've read Christopher Columbus's journal, diary. I've read a short account of the destruction of the Indies. I've read the Chronicles of the Nares Expedition. I've read The Conquest of New Spain. And I haven't finished, but I have at least read some of the North American Indian. I also have some other stuff about Native Americans, but that's not really the point. So when I say I know what I'm talking about, I at least know what I'm talking about. Also, I did graduate high school and go to college, and I do have a degree. So I do have basic history on my side as well. So let's get into this.
Today on Crack Your Bible, we are going to be talking about why is it that people in the upper echelons of government, of media, and of higher education hate Christopher Columbus. And it's time that people get a double dose of discernment, because so often people think that it's a genocide and all of these poor people. Nah, Christians, wake up. This is all about denigrating Christians and being upset about the fact that these Satanists can't freely practice and openly practice human sacrifice to Satan.
Okay, so that's already crazy. So some people might be asking, hey Ramon, hey Alpha, I noticed that when you go after the Vigilant Christian Mario, or you make a deconstruction video on Rachel Steffens, you don't really push on them too hard. You don't really make fun of them. You don't really mock them. You do on your parodies, but you don't really do that in your videos deconstructing what they say. Why is it that you went after Brian so hard? Now, I'll tell you why. Brian is a fellow Catholic, so that's in-house. And what he was saying is way more dangerous. The people listening to Rachel Steffens are the same type of people that go to Goop for legitimate medical advice. Okay? It's not the same group. What Brian is saying, he's saying it in a very serious tone. He's done research, and he's speaking as an authority on YouTube, as a respected Catholic. So when he says absolutely obnoxious, absolutely, I don't want to use the word evil, but when he tries to justify absolute crimes against humanity and deny historical facts, that actually hurts how people view the Catholic faith and view Christianity as a whole. So what he says is deadly serious and extremely important. So mocking him and correcting him is extremely important. There is no need to mock Rachel Steffens. The stuff she's saying is out there. It is fringe. It is not mainstream. The stuff Brian was saying is very mainstream and needs mockery. The stuff that Rachel Steffens is saying and the stuff that the Vigilant Christian Mario is saying is already a type of satire of reality. There's no need to mock these things. All that is needed is simple correction to help the people who would be tempted to listen to her to know better, and to inform the people that are worried that this is what represents Christianity, to explain to them, no. There are reasonable, rational Christians and Catholics in the world that do not believe this fringe ideas. Okay, so it's a very different thing. So the tone that I take is very different. This is more corrective and, if you will, paternal. While with Brian, it was more aggressive as I was truly offended. A family squabble, which can always get a little bit ugly anyway. Anyway, let's continue on.
Yesterday was Christopher Columbus Day here in the United States, and it is really just a very inconsequential holiday. It's very trivial. I mean, nobody really does anything for it because it's just a federal holiday. But I've noticed in recent years, people are getting so upset. They're defacing statues. They're tearing down statues. We have city councils here in the United States trying to rename Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day.
There is nothing wrong with renaming Columbus Day Indigenous Peoples Day. Now, I'm going to get into politics here, not because I want to, but because she's going to go into politics. So, before you guys think I'm some bleeding heart SJW, let's get some facts out of the way about my politics and where I stand. I'm Catholic, I'm Christian, I'm a Republican. I believe in the freedom of speech and I believe in the right to bear arms. I'm also part Native American, part Spanish, and that Spanish blood goes back to the Sephardic diaspora, which means with some Jewish or Semitic ancestry, and French. Okay, so that's where I'm coming from. Those are my politics. And I don't have a problem with Christopher Columbus. If Christopher Columbus didn't exist, I wouldn't exist, and I like existing. So I'm going to say that right off the bat. But changing Christopher Columbus Day to an Indigenous Peoples Day is actually a great idea. It'd be really great if America actually started learning about the Native Americans. You could still do Thanksgiving, you could still do Christopher Columbus, you could still do the bravery of Christopher Columbus doing discovery as part of that story, but tell it from the perspective of the people who already lived here. There's nothing wrong with that, and it would be great for the American psyche to remember the people who were here before us.
Hold on, what is actually going on here? Because this is ridiculous. So often Christians, they don't do their homework. So they are just led astray by all of this nonsense. And I'm here to say that this is a concerted effort by Satanists to try to denigrate somebody who is sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ.
First off, people pushing back against Christopher Columbus has nothing to do with Satanism. Not even a little bit. I've watched enough of her videos. I don't think she understands or knows what Satanist is. Later on in this video, she will try to say that some kind of satanic thing going on in India, like as in actual India, and she's going to compare what was going on with the Khan and Marco Polo with reality, which, by the way, there's a good chance Marco Polo is a fictional character. But anyway. So there's an important mistake here that both Rachel and Brian seem to make, which is that they seem to be forgetting, or at least willfully ignoring, the plight of the people affected by Christian and Catholic missions or movements, actions. And that's actually very sad. And honestly, it makes us as Catholics and as Christians look bad. Real people were hurt. Real people were damaged. Real people were killed during these expeditions, during these Inquisitions and Reconquista and conquistadors coming over here. All that had real consequences, both in the north with the Pilgrims and the Protestants, and in the south with the Catholics. We killed people. We destroyed civilizations. We destroyed knowledge. And there's no getting that back. We can't undo that. It's something we did. It's not good.
But let's get back into Christopher Columbus, because he had the same idea. He knew that the Great Commission told us to go out into the world and preach the gospel. But what was going on is, for 700 years, Spain had been fighting radical Islam. Islam was trying to infiltrate Europe to make Europe an Islamic state,
That's almost correct. It wasn't radical anything. It was the Moors and then later the Ottomans. And it wasn't Islam per se. It was basically the Moors came in through the Pillars of Hercules, and they took over Aragon, and they conquered what was a completely decentralized nation state. After the fall of Rome, after the Visigoths and the Goths took over what was Spain, because the Goths split into two groups. One went to Dacia, the other went to Spain, And these Goths did not have a good organization. There's actually some really good books and poetry and epics from that time period that I happen to like, that I've only read online, though I don't have the hard copy of. Anyway, they were so dysfunctional that if you want to call them Muslim invaders, but I believe they were the Moors, when they came in, they just simply conquered and kicked ass and defeated the previous kingdoms that had been set up under Rome. These were now Christian kingdoms, and this was early medieval, early Dark Age Europe, and the Christians lost. That's what happened. But to call them Christian is a little misleading because they had a lot of pagan influence there as well, which is how the Moors or the Muslims justified their actions, because they felt that they were liberating the people from their idolatry. In fact, she's going to explain it here, almost accurately.
To make Europe an Islamic state or Islamic continent. And the Spaniards had been spending all of this time and money driving out the Moors. These were Muslims. And this was a bloody, violent war for 700 years. And it just didn't happen in Spain. It happened all over Europe.
Actually multiple wars.
They desecrated the Apostle Peter's grave.
And she's using Wikipedia as her reference.
They murdered. These people were extremely violent. This happened also during the time of the Crusades, where they're trying to take Jerusalem for Islam.
She's conflating different time periods.
These wars aren't free. It costs money. A soldier does not go to war at his own expense. Remember this. Paul said this. So it costs money to try to, hold off the violent Muslim horde that wants to kill every Christian and Jew. Muhammad's dying breath, regardless of, they can tell you all they want about how there's no compulsion in religion and, we believe in Jesus and blah, 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 and, we're all family. But Muhammad wanted death to the Jews and the Christians at his dying breath. Those were his last words. You can talk, David Woods talks about Muhammad's last words.
David Wood aside, her comments there are semi-foolish. The Reconquista and the Inquisition wasn't aimed solely at Muslims. It was actually aimed mostly at Jews. And Sephardic Jews is that. People call it conversos. Again, see my video deconstructing Brian Hallworth's video defending the Inquisition for more on this, because I don't want to go through that all over again. It was a lot of material. It was like 30 minutes worth of material.
Constantinople, the head of the Byzantine Empire, was taken over by Muslims, and it became Istanbul.
She's just going to go through the history here, so I'm going to make a hard cut, and I'll come back to you guys in a second. Okay, so she's about to make a reference to Marco Polo. Now, here's the problem. She's not making a reference to this, which, by the way, this is not 100% reliable anyway. She's actually going to make a reference to the Marco Polo TV show and take that as actual history. She's taking a dramatic fiction based off of an unreliable source, and she's going to use that as fact. Prepare yourselves.
Spain, number one, they had war debts, but number two, they needed to be able to get to Asia. And you know why they wanted to get to Asia? It wasn't just for trade routes. There were people in India who were rulers, like the Great Khan, who had been please send us religious leaders to help us convert people in India, because they were having problems with idolatry, just like today India is having problems with idolatry. The amount of demonic spirits in India is just overwhelming.
Okay, she's going to do this with the Native Americans also, so I'm just going to hit it here, and when she does it later, I'll add that little clip after this. But, okay, India is not a country of demonic spirits, okay? It's just not. And they're not just worshiping idols. India is full of people called Hindus and Buddhists. The Hindus, there's also Muslims there, but that's a different story altogether. The Hindus worship in different ways. Some worship different incarnations of the same God. Some view different gods as different avatars. It's not just simply idolatry. They're actually worshiping a god called Krishna, sometimes Vishnu. They're worshiping different incarnations of the same god. It's a whole thing, it has to do with Dharma. As for her accusation that she's about to do against Native Americans, she's going to call Native Americans and Native American tribalism Satanism. For the cheap seats, tribalism, Native American, if you want to call it mythology, fabulism, is not Satanism. Satanism is a very specific thing. It's actually the worship of Satan or Lucifer. If your religion doesn't even have a concept of Satan or Lucifer, it doesn't even have a concept of a monotheistic God, no, that is not a satanic religion. That is a religion that you can say has false beliefs or has incorrect beliefs, but it is not in itself a satanic religion. And that is highly derogatory and highly ethnocentric and racist of you to say. Rachel.
It is insanity how much idolatry is in India. In the 1490s, there were rulers saying, please, why aren't you sending the people that we're asking for help for? We need religious leaders to come down and help us teach the people.
She is saying that the pagan rulers were begging for Christian saviors. It doesn't really make sense now, does it? There is a line of truth here, which is that as part of trade, they wanted cultural trade as well. They wanted to learn our religion and how we think so that we could communicate better. That is not the same as they were asking for us to come save them. That is a horrible, horrible trope. It's called the white savior complex, and it's really outplayed.
Well, you know why they weren't making it to India? Because they were being slaughtered by violent Muslims. So Christopher Columbus and the Spanish crown, they said, okay, let's find an alternate route. If we're not going to continue to send people to be slaughtered by Muslims on their way to go to India, let's try to find an alternate route where we can go around them and reach India. So they put all of this money behind Christopher Columbus. Well, of course, there's North and South America in between Europe and Japan, so he didn't know that. So as he's traveling on his first journey, he ends up in a place called the Caribbean today, and he notices that there are some very friendly tribes there. They are kind, they're hospitable, but they're covered in marks.
Okay, then she goes to a clip from the Daily Wire. It's a horrible one-sided piece that tries to paint Christopher Columbus as a pure good guy who is defending himself against cannibal natives. It's not exactly true either. The problem with this is the same problem that happened with Brian, which is that he's just taking one source and he's taking one side. You can't just take that one source into consideration and have that be a complete or total truth, especially if you're going with apologist. Here you have an American apologist trying to show how Christopher Columbus was a great man, which I agree he was a great man. He did a great thing. He was an explorer. That being said, the things that were done as a consequence of his exploration were horribly evil, and the consequences of the things that he did and implemented were wrong. And they're not just wrong here, they're wrong in his own account. They're also wrong on the accounts of the Catholic priests that came after him. So, no. I'm sorry, Rachel. You do not know what you're talking about. Christopher Columbus was an egomaniac who refused to admit that he was wrong, long after he knew he was wrong. That does not take away from his accomplishments, but that is something that should be put in light when you're talking about him. But here's where she completely lost me when I was watching it the first time. And if you can make it past this point on your first watch through, if you watched this video of hers, congratulations. I couldn't. I had to actually stop and go back and listen to it later. Get ready for crazy.
They liked to eat babies and fetuses. Does that sound familiar to you? For everybody who's into the alternate Christian, political stuff, y'all know what's up with the Clinton
Alternate Christian political stuff. That's how she identifies.
Foundation. Y'all know what's up with Marina Abramovich. Familiar to you? For everybody who's into the alternate Christian, political stuff, y'all know what's up with the Clinton Foundation. Y'all know what's up with Marina Abramovich and the spirit cooking.
Christopher Columbus has nothing to do with the Clinton Foundation. the atrocities that were done in the name of Christopher Columbus and the mistakes that Christopher Columbus made, everything from him stealing and robbing and taking land that wasn't his and claiming territory that wasn't his, to him mistakenly thinking that he was in India, all those mistakes of him calling this the Indies, yeah, that has nothing to do with the Clintons. Again, I had to say this earlier. I have a different political leaning than the Clintons. I am not trying to defend the Clintons here, but this has nothing to do with it. This is complete conspiratorial bullshit. Don't listen to what she's saying. She is talking nonsense, and this is going to really hurt your credibility if you start using her as a source.
Y'all know, you already know. I don't even have to talk about this. You guys already know about these things. That these Satanists, they want open borders, they want abortion, so that they can continue their sacrifices where, hey, if people go missing, nobody's going to know. Nobody's looking for these people.
These are unsubstantiated accusations that she's making on a conspiratorial and honestly insane and paranoid level. The Clintons are not Satanist. They're not Luciferian. They're not Illuminati. They're just not. So you guys can just drop all that right now.
A waste. So, these people on this island were partaking of the exact same kind of things that the powers that be, the spiritual wickedness in high places, continue to do to this day. And unfortunately, some of the people from Columbus's expedition, some of the religious leaders, a Franciscan monk, was eaten by the Caribe.
For any of you listening to this and it's like, hey, isn't she defending a lot of Catholic stuff right now? She is, and later on in the video she'll get into that and she'll talk about how she doesn't like the Catholic Church and she's identifying Christopher Columbus as a pre-Protestant somehow. Anyway, a pre-Reformationist. It doesn't make a lot of sense and it's not important to the content of the video, but she's going to delve into that and we'll be out of this video before she gets there.
Of the violence perpetrated by radical Islam, just like 600 years later, we're still dealing with today.
Seriously, she goes off on so many tangents and hits so many topics that I would have to pull out my entire library to show you references of where she's wrong. So we're just going to skip that.
Try to sully Christopher Columbus's name, talk about what a terrible person he is. It's because they're Satanists.
That's insane. That is an insane statement. You cannot call the entire population of Native Americans who don't believe in a monotheistic God Satanist. That is insanity. And that is a form of racism and ethnocentrism that goes beyond the pale. You are crossing into insanity and into jingoism here.
But we see that the reason that the powers that be denigrate him is because before Columbus came, the whole continent was just rife with Satanism. It was human sacrifice, slavery, genocide, rape. And when Christopher Columbus came, a lot of that stuff got wiped out. They blame him for these things, even though those things already existed.
Okay, first off, to say that in the old world that there was no slavery is insane. To say that there was no murder and no rape is insane. There were crimes in Spain, in England, in France, any Christian country you can think of. There were crimes there as well. To call all the Native Americans Satanists is again insane. That doesn't make any sense. Their belief system has nothing to do with Satanism. Okay, so I used to have a much better translation of the Popol Vuh, but this is the only one that I have right now. My better one got stolen. And this is Latin American philosophy, and the reason why I bring this is because it has references to pre-Columbian religions as part of understanding the philosophy of the pre-Columbian cultures. Pre-Columbian just means pre-Columbus, by the way. Okay? So, I can tell you as someone who's read these for a college course, passed, she doesn't know what she's talking about and she's completely wrong about what the ancient native people believed.
You know, a lot of the tribes helped the people that came after Christopher Columbus defeat all of these other nations because they were tired of being sold into slavery. They were tired of their fate.
She's going to start talking about this, and almost every fact she's going to give is wrong. So I'm going to stop the video here because you can get where I'm going. Almost everything she's saying is factually, historically incorrect. Don't listen to this woman. She doesn't know history. She doesn't know facts. It's just the truth. Talk to you all later. Peace, like, and subscribe.